Oh God, we're recording.
Yeah. Charles Keoho
How are
on
you, sir?
on Maui, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wailuku Maui.
Right on. I ran across in just names have been popping up in my head lately. You ever run into Doug Weber?
No, he's not on Maui, I don't think.
I saw a recent thing he's doing taxes and it says Wailuku, so
Oh, really? Doug Weber.
yeah.
Huh. I'll have to try and see if I can find him. I've not seen him in anything that we've done here on Maui. We did a little get together, and Marilyn Cohey came over from Kauai, and that was fun. But that was very fun, actually. It's amazing how in the back of our brain, we're still 17, 18 years old, but then you look in the mirror in the shower and you're like,
I hear
your
you,
hair all
man.
white, I no more hair.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah, I don't know Doug in Maui though. I was sad that Earl Kealoha did not contact me. I guess he took the cruise around the state now that he lives in the mainland somewhere, Colorado, I think.
yeah, severed.
Yeah, but
Did you go over for the Big Island one in February?
no, I did not do that.
Okay.
I did not do
So
that.
those are some neat pictures, and I could not for the life of me ID one person in the group picture, and come to find out it was Philip Hooten.
Well, again, 50 years. It's like son of
Oh
a gun.
yeah.
But it's funny. I guess my voice has not really changed much over the years. And to me, it's my voice, but I keep forgetting it's really deep and low, and I forget about that. It's the only voice I know.
Have you been watching any of the other sessions?
I've watched one or two,
Okay.
um, and it's been fun. It'd be kind of nice if there was like highlights of what you're talking about, or when, if that's possible. Like, hey, at 10:10, we talked about this, and so people can find their different interests that more easily. But no, it's nice to see people's faces. It's nice to recognize people. Some people are like absolutely recognizable, like Philip Swain. Duh, that face hasn't changed,
But
except I got
lack
no
of
hair.
hair. Yeah.
Well,
That
that
for
part,
me is a big change.
but he's still slender, and or slender looking. I don't know how slender he is, but still has the same look about him, right? Um, you still have the same look about you, just as you get white hair. Ain't it a son
And
of a gun?
one of the big physical changes for me, because I didn't know him hardly at all in high school, was Kamuela Chun.
Yeah, he's Kamoro is the embodification of all the T-shirts we used to wear at school, right? And he actually did it. And I'm like, oh Lord Almighty! I remember because from Concert Glee, I remember him as a very shy person, right? And he was a very quiet, mild mannered kind of guy. And then and I don't know when I saw him as Camuela, because you know Kilauea was what was
Norman.
his, yeah, Norman. Camuela was Thomas, but and uh, it is what it is. But the guy was just a shy, kind of retiring kind of guy, and all of a sudden, eh, wow, like, like, doggone it. And then when I went like this, my belly dropped. I was actually going to try in my earlier years. I actually was trying to do that, trying to see if I could do the muscle man, the Arnold stuff. But um, it's difficult to bulk up like that and stay like that for a long time. It's really, really difficult. It's a lot of dedication and hard work, and plus he's a kumu too, I guess, right? So fascinating. His life story has got to be. I haven't had a chance. Did you interview him? I didn't see that yet.
Yeah,
But
he posted, but like you talk about the dedication, I could never restrict my diet like is necessary for anything like that.
and if you think about it, you're talking about diet and health and stuff like that. We grew up in that time when we went to the dentist. When we powered the dentist, they give us one lollipop, right, full of sugar. Um, and as we look at our health and doctors, right? who knows better about nutrition and health better than? Yeah, I'm going to assume that Kamala is natural. I have no idea if he shot up drugs or whatever and stuff like that. Not my business. But for the most part, who knows better about health and nutrition better than a guy that does bodybuilding, right? Because I mean, when they're trying to enter competitions, they got to do this, they got to do that, they got to dehydrate every so often to get all the striations of the muscle and stuff like that. Fascinating the detail and the work. So if you could take advice about nutrition, talk to somebody that's actually in the gym all the time, or or someone like him. He would be a fascinating discussion along that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Really
So
interesting.
so to get us a starting point, what grade did you start Kamehameha, Charles?
I had the privilege of starting at ninth grade, um,
I
and I
just
had
got
the
off
privilege.
the session with Daryl Yasutaki, and he started in ninth grade.
Uh,
And he
but
mentioned how startled he was by how many of us started in ninth grade.
I don't know, because there's so many that started in seventh grade or kindergarten even. I think
Yeah.
there's about 15 or 20 that started in kindergarten, something like that. But as you get older and as capabilities open up or whatever, as slots open up.
Yeah.
But unlike everybody else, I had the privilege of going to two ninth grade years. So while everybody's going 68 this year, I'm like, oh God, I'm 68. I'll be 69 in October. So I had two freshman years.
Speaking of which, I'm also trying to keep track of. Okay, I have your birthday, October
Yeah,
23. Yeah.
yeah, October 23rd,
Okay.
1956.
All right.
So I
And
could have been in the class of. I actually was in the class of 74, but growing up, I was always around adults more than children for many different reasons because of businesses and stuff like that my family was in, and so social skills with my own peers were very very difficult all throughout high school, and so I was kept back the year, and apparently I was kept in school because of an auntie of mine on Kauai, but I don't know that story well enough. But it was certainly an interesting time growing up because we're not comfortable with who we are and what's going on, and some of us had really good families that we came from. Some of them were kind of so-so families, and guts nuts and bolts. The parents will do as best as they can. When you're 25, you blame everybody but yourself. Now you're 68 and 69. Um, well, nope, it's me. It's me.
and
It's all me.
when you talk about doing the best we can, some of the conversations I've had touch on growing up in Hawaii because of the economy. You're struggling to put food on the table at times, and it gets rough. And when you have five, six, seven kids, then it gets, and kids don't know. They eat what you put on the table if they're hungry, and you know,
Absolutely.
and the clothing magically appears, and there's always gas in the car, and so you just kind of,
You don't
you
think about it
know,
at all. Yeah.
yeah, your reality's off.
I grew up in a poorer neighborhood in Maui, and I had no idea I was poor or that we weren't rich, whatever rich is. Nobody's going to be an Elon Musk, but but still, it's like you said, had food on the table. Um, I went to a, I guess we were okay because I went to a Catholic school growing up from K through 8, but so we weren't doing too bad, I guess. I'm
And
assuming so.
you from birth, you've been on Maui the whole time?
I was on birth. I was in Honolulu at Queen Kapiolani. Apparently, I was a preemie baby. I was 2 months premature. Go figure that one out.
Huh.
And
Do
I'm
you have
I'm
do you
I
have
now stand
siblings?
6'2". I have two brothers. My one brother lives over in Oahu and Waianae. The other one lives in Makakilo. And could my mother have them all at one time? Heck no. I'm the oldest. The next one is 58. The next one is 48.
Wow.
So my father
Yeah.
died um, after the second child, and then she remarried. And then so my third brother, I guess everybody calls it half brothers or whatever, but my brother, smart boy, God, he's smart. But the it's so interesting as we age through different parts. And I think you understand this because unfortunately, my greatest regret in life is I don't have any children, and so I don't have any grandchildren. But you see the same jokes throughout the years and times. It's like, really, again, again, again. But so I saw it with my two brothers in different ways. But yeah, fascinating all that stuff. So yeah, yeah, I had two ninth grade years. I also have another claim to fame for Kamehameha schools, Robert Cosmero and Concert Glee. I joined Concert Glee at the senior year, and I joined because of Earl Keoho. Earl said, "Hey, come and let's go try out." And apparently, my name was on a callback list to come back. At that time, you had to kind of audition for it, which I really didn't care at the time, but I'm glad I did eventually. But when Robert Cosmero put in his first halal, he went up to Kamehameha School's Concert Glee, and he taught us all an entrance hula, with his flair that he likes to do. And so he put all the boys in Concert Glee in a line and taught them that entrance first entrance step. And I have the great privilege of being the first one to be kicked off of the line. No one else can say that. No one else can say that at Kamehameha schools. I don't care what year, what time. No one else can say that. I'm the first. It was funny though, because like Robert at the time said, "Brother, you can sing, but next." And if I remember correctly, I think Charles Kupu was told something along the same line, and he ended up being a Kumuhula and a Loea hula. But yeah, but that was my introduction into Kamehameha schools, was ninth grade year.
And then after graduation, what was the next step for you after graduation?
Well, didn't have a lot of direction from the parents. I was going to go to college, but I just went to like University of Hawaii system with a general business degree, and none of it made any sense to me at the time. And again, I didn't have any direction to say stay focused on this or this or that. So I said, none of these guys that are teaching us has ever been in business. None of these guys have ever had to make a. So backing up a little bit, my family has always been, since I was 5, 6 years old, always been some kind of a small business of one sort or another. At 8 or 9 years old, I was pumping gas out of a shop that we had on the way to Kahului Airport. So that's kind of why I didn't have any good social skills with my peers, because I was dealing with adults all the time, constantly. So coming to school, but I'm by myself, kind of difficult at first. But anyway, it is what it is. But I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Your first step, or what you did? You said you went to UH
after school. Yeah, I went to UH first, Maui Community College. Then I went to go to UH Manoa, and then with the idea of trying to get a business degree, and then realizing that none of these guys that are teaching, they taught math, but they never had to make a payroll. They never had to go without to make a payroll. They never had to be sued by any of their employees. None of these guys are, most of those at the time. I'm sure now it's different. I have no idea. But at the time, none of these guys had ever had that capability for themselves. Let me exchange this down a little bit. I don't know if that makes a difference. But none of these guys had ever done that kind of work for themselves. So I thought I found it to be a little bit useless, because if it's just doing math, didn't need it. And that's kind of what a lot of the business degree was at the time, or what I saw at the time, I should say. And then so I just went into the family businesses and started doing work there, and did several businesses over the years, tourist businesses, service businesses, and I guess it was service business. And my father, after my father died, my mother remarried, and my stepfather was a semi-pro soccer player originally from Germany. He's a Mason, but he started Maui Youth Soccer on Maui.
Wow. Okay.
Now that being said, in our time and period, we had no idea what soccer was. So when he wanted to try and get close to his new stepson, he took me down to the beach in Kaanapali and said, "I'm going to kick this ball to your forehead." I'm like, and you hit it back to me. I had no idea what he was talking about, and if you knew what he was talking about, you kind of maybe would go a little bit head forward and kind of like an angle a little bit to him. I was straight up. Oh, and as a semi-pro, he clocked it right in my forehead, right into the soft sand. Thank goodness. That was a good introduction to his stepson.
Holy
But
moly, that's different. Yeah.
yeah, but it was he didn't hurt me. It didn't hurt, but it's like it just caught me off guard. Like, but it's life's many some of life's many silliness and things. But that was kind of like power school. It's like no real direction, unfortunately, other than I went into the family business or into a business, and eventually maybe create my own businesses, and which I did. But um, that was always kind of the mindset of that. It's not like I wanted to have a career. I wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer or anything else like that. There was never any indication to be that kind of a personality, or that kind of arena, and no direction other than just being in business for your own self. There's something to be said to be signing a paycheck from the front rather than the back. But that being said, it's also not a simple or easy thing either.
I
But
hear you.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Now, how about you? What was your career doing?
Well, let's see. It was sales initially, which was in the automotive field. So I kind of branched from there and moved into manufacturing, so-called semi-managerial, and then I went and was kind of like an in-house manager for a guy that owns some tire stores in Texas. So it's for the most part been automotive till I came back to Hawaii in '96, opened a driving school with my dad, and then quickly found
Wow.
out that he thought he was boss and I thought I was boss. So we couldn't somehow make that work. So we separated and ran, separate entities, and it some lessons you learn late in life.
Yeah, when I opened my first business for myself, it was with my mother, and I eventually found not quickly I eventually found out that 49% of a small business, a small family business, means you own nothing. Um, and she tried, I guess, for me to be independent, but at the same time, no education and no guidance. And that's unfortunately what's missing all the way around, right? Is how do you go about doing things? What are the tried and true or best methods? And that's something that now that with the internet, you can certainly see that a lot easier. And there's so many different avenues to take a look at how to manage, run, and move a business forward. You we had a travel agency at one time, and the way to get a travel agency business rolling was you had to have a yellow page ads, and that was the yellow page guys always kept trying to sell you bigger ads because that's how they make their money. Well, that went the way of the dodo bird, as far as the yellow page ads I'm talking about, and so did the travel agency business because that's done. But it was fascinating, how to go about doing that business. But eventually, you find out that being 49% of a small business owner is very difficult with family.
It's
So
I've
I
heard
can I
that
feel you.
said along the way. Working with family is a huge challenge.
I guess unless you have a larger business where there's more profit capability, because eventually, no matter who you are or what you do, you eventually have to give up the reins of a business. So you have to, if you have a large enough business or if you have a large enough business plan, which again we didn't have a plan, we just kind of like, okay, let's do this. If you have a good business plan, you have to manage expectations for the future as to and how do you do takeovers, and how do you business succession planning, basically is what it's called. But just so you have to look at that kind of arena. But When you have just a Manini kind of small business, um, you kind of run it by the seat of your pants, which is not necessarily the best idea. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
And as we look around Hawaii, what you say is true because you look at places like Jane's Fountain or some of the long-standing boulevards Saimin. I mean, how much business plan is there? You make Saimin, people eat it, you get paid,
yeah,
but something in there, something magical, maybe the taste or the atmosphere or the staff
yeah, yeah.
makes
But
people
when it gets down
continue to
to it,
come and
it's I guess it's the family dynamics and the family trust and love, right? Because if you are a selfish person, you're gonna treat your children selfishly too. If you are a generous person, or if your family was a generous family, and you talk openly with each other about where you're going, what you expect, that would help too. But if you're not, you're not. And again, at 25, I remember blaming my mother for all kinds of stuff because my father had passed away when I was 15. I was a sophomore in school, and my father passed away. And so at 20, 21, 25, I was blaming my mother about all kinds of stuff about my life. And then now at 68, that's a stupid idea. It's a silly thing when you think about it. It's really silly. But it is what it is, and we have to grow through different stages of life. It's like you watch. Unfortunately, you watched over the last 15 years or 20 years maybe, where you get participation trophies for kids, and I think that's probably the worst thing that you can do for kids in general because there's no value to that. They haven't earned it. They're just like, I showed up, I got a trophy. So you get a box full of trophies that mean absolutely nothing, right? Um, and again, you could have people with different opinions on that, but um, it's a gut nuts and bolts. I believe it's family and communication. You just look at someone like Michael Crab's family. What a wonderful family, right? We can always make a joke about Michael Crab in politics, right? Love him, love him. I remember one of these calls that we did like as a class call. Hey, Michael, so what do you think about Donald Trump? And they're like, no, 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 no. But that being said, he's a wonderful man, and he's open to so many ideas, and he has his definite opinions, and that's fine. Yeah, I could care less about that. But he's got a wonderful family, and they have great family communications and ties with each other. What they do on the outside of that, I have no idea. But you've had Kamano Pono, that was OHA president. Some controversy around him, maybe I don't know, and I don't care. That's irrelevant to me. But when it gets down to it, it's family. I think that's what's unique about Hawaii, and maybe Kamehameha schools, and especially the first time we went to the big event at the with zeros and fives, right? Holy moly, all these people, and you have no idea who they are. They're like, oh, and you go see like, wow, you at school? You, I know all these people. I'm going like, I didn't know you went to Kamehameha schools. I didn't know you was Hawaiian. And what is Hawaiian, right? Oh my God. The one there was. I don't know if you can see the shirt. This shirt called Kanaka. Ah,
there we
there you
go.
go. And so this is from Bulaia, the comedian, basically saying one drop is all you need to be Kanaka, and that's a fact because all the native Hawaiian stuff that is not Hawaiian. But that's another story. I don't know if you want to go there, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Um, but the so over years, I've just had different businesses and done different things. Um, some within my probably the biggest business for me was doing travel agencies. But then I got tired of the retail travel agency because I was in business with my mother, and that was just kind of like your dad, too much humbug. And so I just walked out. I walked away, and so I want nothing to do with this. I didn't want to do business with you, mom. That's it. Um,
And
that's
I assume it's changed. I don't know the inside workings, but with the internet and all these different companies that allow a person to do all their own travel planning? Do
Well,
travel agencies still
sure.
have a place?
Yeah, there is. So it changed in the late 80s, early 90s, um, where when I started, you got a commission from the airlines. I think it was at 8 to 10% commission from tickets that you sold. Then as the internet started coming about, something like Inter-Island to Honolulu with Hawaiian Airlines, because we started out with big, thick books of information to plan a trip. Now, of course, you got the internet where it's much faster and easier. So there is a place still for travel agents, but it's more on the corporate business side to manage costs, because now in that, and I don't do that anymore, but now in the current environment, you charge a company or an individual a fee to book the travel and manage the travel. So at the time when I was doing that as an active business for myself, I charged $75 for international bookings, and all of it was international bookings. I had a unique opportunity on Maui where I was asked by a Christian ministry to do booking people from literally all over the world to Maui. It was called the Haggai Institute. It's still called the Haggai Institute, but they used to have they bought a old hotel in Maui in a place that made absolutely no sense for a hotel in Maui. Are you familiar with Keoho in Maui? Okay, so it's the South Maui, where there's got beautiful beaches all over the place, but they built the hotel like about a mile away from the ocean. You could see it, but like you can't really get to it very easily. It was kind of a stupid idea, so that folded up. But this Christian Institute picked it up as a training center for Christian missionaries from literally all over the world. Fascinating. Um, India, Sri Lanka, every country but Europe and America. They would train people. At the time, it was like $500 as an entry fee, and they paid for your airfare, your hotel and meals for a month, and all the training. And so, if you're coming from Japan, $500 is like a drop in the bucket. It's not a big deal. If you're coming from Bangladesh, it's a lot of money. And so, but they had to raise that money themselves, and then the institute would take care of these people and bring them to Maui or to Singapore. I think was the other training center, and bring them over. And so I got to meet the most fascinating people all over the world, from all over the world. At the time, you name the country, I could tell you the capital of the country. I can't do that now, and it's major airports. But yeah, what's that? Mosquito flies.
No, no. Cat came at their cat tree. It's about a 6-foot cat tree, and came at it at 120 miles an hour and just leapt to the top, and it banged against the wall. And we
Cats are
never,
the greatest.
I guess, I never thought I would have cats. I've always been a dog person, but we got 2 cats, and yeah, we're in love. So,
But
but they
cats are the
are
greatest because,
kolohe.
oh
They are
yeah.
just so kolohe.
It, okay, I'm ready to be petted now. Okay, leave me alone. Don't even bother me.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They
But
they lay down the law and go from there. So
hey, time to feed me, boy. I don't care what you say. I want to eat now, or I'm going to scratch up the furniture.
yeah.
Uh, Unfortunately, my wife and I love animals, but at the same time, she's highly allergic to the fur, so she
Oh,
cannot. But our pastor has a cute little, I forget what kind of dog, but loves playing with that dog. And as soon as she comes home, she has to wash her hands and wash her, rinse out her mouth and stuff like that, because she just gets, or she'll get all kinds of allergies.
holy moly!
And
How
she goes,
long have you been married?
well, this time only 10 years. I've been married. Unfortunately, I've been married 3 times. I was just telling this to my wife last night. It was my dream that I was going to be married once and once only. That didn't happen. Son of a gun. But the we've been married now 10 years. January will make 11 years. But and because I'm getting older, I made it simple. It's either going to be December 3rd or January 23rd, so I can remember the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
But
Where's your wife? Where
she's
did you
from
meet your
Tokyo.
wife? Where did you meet her?
I met her at a friend's place in Honolulu when I was with the Rotary clubs in Maui, in West Maui. I was the president of my Rotary Club, and I met other presidents of the Rotary clubs in Honolulu, and he was in Makaha. He was a private chef and fascinating man. We got on like peanut butter and jelly. We're just good friends. Um, the and he has a beautiful place in Makaha that he did like basically like a private bed and breakfast, and or but instead of short-term stays, it was always long-term stays, and they would stay for a month at a time. And he would teach. It was all Japanese women, and he would teach them how to cook Western food in Hawaii, and of course doing some little bit of Hawaiian history and stuff like that, and doing some of the tourist stuff, going to Pearl Harbor, and which is very popular with the Japanese. But and that's how I met my wife, because always traipsing through there, he's got all these beautiful Japanese girls, like, and if I go to his house, I mean like a king, because he's a private chef too. Huh? And he said, "Hey, you got to meet this girl." I said, "Nah, no need. I was already divorced from a Japanese wife." I said, "No need anymore. Wow, I'm done with that idea." And well, that being said, we're now married 10 years, coming up on 11. We've known each other now about 13, 14 years, something like that. But um, she's very, very sweet, very, very fun. She's from Tokyo. And have you ever been to Japan? Kermit,
But
the place is
I want to now.
nuts, nuts. Man, I would love to take the classmates to Japan. They would have so much fun over there. Because first of all, we can eat everything, but because we know the foods already, kind of, but we don't know the foods. So like we grew up with Japanese food in Hawaii. That's not even a question. Chinese food, Korean food, but there's a big difference when you're eating it in a place like Japan, or but when real Japanese actually make it, or real Koreans make it, or real Chinese make their food. Big difference. Um, the Every time we go, we go to something different and unique, and because they have 4 seasons, no matter what time of the year you go, it's wicked. Oh, I mean, like disgusting. Give you a great idea. The first time I went to Japan, they do this thing called kaiseki. Kaiseki is a where it's a multi-platter meal, like 10 to 15 plates, maybe 20, right? And you think of that, you go, holy moly, but no can. So the first time we did that was a very beautiful Japanese style inn, and the lady come with the low table and the tatami mats. Lady come in with 5 small plates. I'm like the pake porgy, whatever you want to call it, inside my head, going like, shucks, that's all I'm going to eat. Ah, wisely, I just shut up and said, "Hey, it's their culture. It is what it is. Be quiet. If you're hungry after, you can find a McDonald's, or actually would have been a 7-Eleven in their case. Would have been easier." But so she brings beautiful 5 plates, and the interesting thing about the way they do that, those kind of meals, is there is no same preparation, and there's no same protein, vegetable, or fruit used. So 15 plates later, I'm going like, holy moly, I was stuffed. And well, fascinating thing. I don't know about Koreans, but I know this for Chinese and Japanese. They do not bring rice until the very end, because that's just a filler. All right. They
I
have
would have
rice.
problems with that.
I've had friends that said that, but because so like these you are you familiar with the Mediterranean tapas? For that, so it's basically small plates, right? Um, so when you have 50, so if you so like let's say the best steak that you can have, let's call it peanut bet if you like peanut bet, right? You get the Filipino part of you in there. If, Ono peanut bet. The first 2 bites, it's gonna be a lot of flavor, a lot of texture. After that, you're just chewing, right? I mean, let's be honest. Same thing with a good steak. You eat the first couple, 2, 3 bites, woo, that bago ono. But after that, you're just chewing. Um, and so what they do is they bring these top of those small plates of the first one was like 5 plates, right? I'm like, shucks, that's all I'm gonna eat. All right, whatever. And then as soon as I power that, the doors open up again, another 5 plates come. Okay. And I think it was 15 plates all total, but by the time I was finished, it was full, and the last one had rice inside, but I couldn't eat all the rice. So that's so much food and so many vegetables and so many different things was really, really interesting.
Hmm.
But now that's a fancier way of doing things. You don't have to go fancy. Last time we went, her girlfriend recommended beef ramen. Oh man! After eating fish all the time, you smell the beef soup. Kind of stink, but you taste them and the bug just oh no. And it's hard to explain, but same thing with Korean food and Chinese food done in Korea or China. The food is very different, or Thai or Vietnamese food, very very different. Yeah,
That's what I imagine, and I've heard people say because obviously Hawaii probably puts a twist on everything. I was in the mainland for quite a while before I realized that meat June was a Hawaii dish.
it's not
I
Korean.
don't know.
I'll be darned.
It's a Hawaii Korean dish, but on the mainland, I walked into Korean restaurants and embarrassed the heck out of myself by asking for meat June.
Now, see, I assumed that was Korean dish.
They have fish June, same thing, coating, lightly fried or whatever, but the meat June is Hawaii. So
I'll be done. Here's a fun one for Korean and Peter Kang. In school, we always call them yobo, right? But do you know what yobo actually means? I didn't either. I had to find out in an almost embarrassing way. I went and dated a single mother that was Korean, beautiful woman, hairdresser. And I took her out one time and said, and thinking it was a friendly term, said, "Hey, yobo, you ready to go?" And she looked at me strange and go like, "Do you know what that means?" I'm like, "Oh Lord, please tell me I didn't say a swear word or something very, very rude. Oh, please, no." And she goes, "No, but that's something you would say mostly for like between a husband and wife or very intimate relationship. But that's not something you would say just as a casual." Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness I never swear because we get all these words, right? Like chocho. Now we know what our image of that is. That's actually a Japanese word for butterfly. And we know why that would be a butterfly too, but we'll leave that alone. For everybody that's going to be listening by this far, they go like, freaking Charles. But that's what it means. It's a butterfly, right? So all these words we know, we have Filipino words, Hawaiian words, Portuguese words, all kinds, and we have no idea what they mean a lot of times because we just never paid any attention to it. But it's crazy all different things, the different kinds of foods, and we have so many mix up varieties over here in Hawaii that you know we have Mediterranean foods, people from the Mediterranean. We got all kinds of people living in Hawaii, so it's fascinating the kind of stuff that's available.
I don't know if I remember it accurately, but along the lines of what you're talking about, uh, it was said to me that book is a bug.
Again, no idea.
Yeah. So,
But we get
along the
all these
way, stuff
Filipino
gets
words,
changed or
Chinese, Korean, uh, Japanese. Um, the my grandmother was Portuguese. I'm half Portuguese, but by ethnicities, I'm half Portuguese. Um, 3/8 or so Hawaiian, and I guess Chinese. And then somewhere along the way, Guamanian. But that was hard to figure out, understand that conversation. That's the cool thing about genealogy. You start finding out things that you have no idea. You ever do your genealogy from either side of your families?
just, names and data. No,
How far back did you go?
we're about 3.5 back, but
You know,
it's a cooperative effort between like two people who've done it for decades, full time almost.
uh,
And then I've just kind of helped with merging it all. But, like I said, you don't know if this is Japanese or Hawaiian or whatever, the quantums are that we have no record of that. I've been tempted to do that 23andMe thing, but
here's what you're gonna find out. Because I did the 23andMe thing, right? Um, and was absolutely hilarious because like, I go to schools. How much Hawaiian I actually get? Who knows? I'm gonna try the 23andMe. There is no Hawaiian in 23andMe. We're too small a subset. So from the 23andMe side, we are Tongan, Samoan, and Austronesian. And the Austronesian includes Filipinos.
Huh.
Absolutely hilarious because I'll go like, nah. But interestingly enough, from that, because of that, I found a cousin, or a cousin found me that had no idea that she was a cousin. Because that's the challenge of the 23. You know, we like to think that our parents were angels all their life, right? Nah, they said the same things that we were doing. You know, struggling around with chasing skirt, or chasing pants, whatever. And this girl calls me up and like, do you mind if I contact you? I'm not sure if you're my uncle, my brother, or my cousin. I'm not sure. And we ended up talking, and it was absolutely hilarious conversation. Um, and so a little bit sad on her side, but very interesting that she had no idea. And when my uncle found out that this was his daughter, like, no kidding, that's where your mother went. But that's the anyway, it's funny when you look at the DNA stuff, but beyond the DNA, the genealogy stuff, there's fascinating stories available along the line. On the Hawaiian side, which I explored dramatically, um, and my uncle did most of the work. My uncle and my auntie already did most of that work anyway, but I just kind of like expanded on there and just kind of look at what's the capabilities of that. But the stories are fascinating. My how many great grandfathers was part of the Council of Chiefs of Kamehameha. Not only that though, but he and another chief did not like what Kamehameha was doing. Again, what it was he didn't like, I don't know. But some of the other chiefs of Kamehameha's inner council killed my great great grandfather and that other chief. What I find interesting in that story more than anything else, if you look at the of let's say the European kings and royalties, chances are, if you're a European in that time of the 16, 1700s, you probably would have not just you killed, but your entire family, your entire bloodline would have been killed off. But that's not true. And so I find that to be fascinating that they had the presence and peace of mind to be able to say that, to be able to think that, and so like, no, that's not necessary. We'll just deal with him. And he had two children, and as a result, Keoho. But when you do your genealogy, I find out that I'm related to Pawahi. I'm related to many ali'i along the way, for Maui Ke Kaulike, and so but so on and so forth. Fascinating stuff.
A couple of us have had discussions about, like for me, I regret not having taken real advantage of the history that was available from live kupuna at the time.
Yeah, I know.
Growing up as a little kid, you're at a table, aunties and uncles are talking about life, just, but they're naming names and, describing relationships. And I look back and go, man, I wish I had documented it and maybe tried to interview more of them, but a lot of them, so many of them are passed now that,
If there's still
stories are
people that are
gone.
alive, there's always potentiality in there, but it's also available through you in the Land Commission Awards. The what was some of the Hawaiian names in your families?
I don't know so much on the Hawaiian. We had some Macaws.
Okay.
A lot of the lineage is Whittemire, which is German, not Hawaiian, but through marriage and connections. In fact, like we mentioned, the uh, hanky panky parts of it, 2 generations back, there's a guy in our family who had a family documented and had another whole family, 4 or 5 kids, like a secret family.
Yeah.
So,
So that's
and
kind of like Willie K. Remember Willie K, the musician? So his father, Manu Kaheli, who was an OHA, or one of the early OHA members, the trustees. Um, Uncle Manu had a couple families. So when he passed away, all of a sudden you have these other guys showing up like, who are you? Well, it's my father. Really? And And that goes also in that's why when you study Hawaiian geology, so like as I go up a line, because we have our parents, right? My mother was Portuguese, so on my father's side, you have your grandparents, great grandparents, so you have 8, 12, 16 lines, going back and back and back and back and back. Going up a line, there was one I'm assuming high lady, or princess, or with power. She had children from 4 husbands, for 4 different men, right? And I'm going like, I can understand it from the guy's side, just simple and plain. Woo, we're going to have some fun, baby. But from her side, she got to do all the work. But she had children from 4 different husbands, and in that scenario, um, is where I am related through Pawahi. Where's that line? But when you look at that, you go like, my goodness, seriously? And but where is that? Where is that? Geometry is 1, 2, 3. But it's fascinating when you look at that and you go like, somewhere along the way, it occurred to me way a while back that when Israel Kamakawiwo'ole, who I emceed one of his concerts way a while back, he did the song Hawaiian Superman, right? And I was thinking about the song. I was like, literally, we are, because of what he was saying, we are literally all related somewhere along the way. Because you had an estimated population of 5 to 800,000, something like that, on the islands, and they whittled down to about maybe 20,000, I think. By the time the turns of the centuries, they whittled down quite a bit because of syphilis, cold, flu, gonorrhea, and different diseases. And then we've expanded again through intermarriage and stuff like that. But literally, somewhere along the way, we are related. You and I, we're related somewhere, and it can be found. That's through the Mormon Church, or if you want to be more politically correct or more correct, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because those who are of that church, they get very defensive. If they really love their church, they get very defensive by calling it Mormon Church. Some do, some don't. But one of my friends does. But you go to that LDS award, wherever you're at, and over there, they have references to boat manifests, birth records, all kinds of stuff. And all that's free too, by the way.
Wow.
And so in your genealogy, there's a lot of stories, even though you don't know that they're stories. There's a lot of stories already in there, and it's a fascinating discovery of doing that kind of stuff too. So like, I think I made a post a while back that I was going to write 50 articles about 50 things that people don't know about the Hawaiian Kingdom or Hawaii, and it seemed like there was no interest in it, so I just stopped doing it. But I'm preparing myself to reclaim land commission awards in my family's name. There's land commission awards, I'm sure, in Akau. I don't know. I'd have to look. But it's actually very, very simple. And if you want, we can do it offline, and I'll show you real quickly. But the laws of Hawaii are so unique and different. I did this with Jeffrey Noah one time. He was so excited. He wrote a post saying he was so excited that he got to go to Hanauma Bay. And then he got a reservation to go, because now to go to Hanauma Bay, you got to get a reservation and
Oh, wow.
and stuff like that, right? I said, brother, you don't need a reservation. He said, no, but I only have a Nevada driver's license. Said 1 drop of blood. And being Kanaka, you already have the rights to be able to go do that. And again, most people don't understand that, don't know that. So, and I found it out in a kind of a strange way. I ran for the office of lieutenant governor on an independent ticket. That was a whole quagmire. But one of the guys I met on Honolulu said, yeah, I go fishing Hanauma Bay all the time. I said, really? Because, Hanauma Bay is a fishing reserve, right? You're not supposed to go fishing in there. I said, yeah, I just go drive down anytime I want. He said, you don't need a reservation? No, I'm Hawaiian. And we started talking about it. And I know where the statutes are for that, but as a Kanaka Maoli, you have the right to go fishing for subsistence for your not to go sell commercially, but so he would go in his car, go poke fish and drive down to the bottom of the hill in Hanama Bay. You go poke fish, then get in his car and leave. And nobody can say nothing to him because he understands the law and how the law works. Not everybody does. If if you tried to do that, for example, and not knowing what he knew and now I know, they would say, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. You'd have to be able to validate why you can. So it's there's some fascinating things that we do not know, as that was not shown to us at Kamehameha. And I doubt that they show it today because for many different reasons. I won't get into the reasons why, but we just were not educated with that kind of information. It is what it is.
Yeah. So in your time on Maui, then I hear that we've got a good couple of handfuls of classmates that live on Maui, right?
Yeah, we got Melissa and Stividad, Greg Friel's here, Greg Friel, Greg Harbottle, that's coming off the top of my head right now. Leanne Vai was here, but she moved.
She's moving back, by the way.
Was she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keely Namau.
Yeah, Keely.
Okay.
Again, names, right? She was Christine. Now it's not Keely, but that's fine. And she does Punana Leo, which is fascinating too.
What is that?
So Punana Leo is teaches Olelo Hawaii, Hawaiian languages, to preschoolers. But to do that, the parents also have to learn. So you have to have the support system at home too. So they teach Olelo Hawaii to preschoolers, and they grow up with that. Where now they've graduated high school, Olelo Hawaii. So she runs the Maui program, I believe. I don't know if it's a state program, but she definitely runs the Maui program for Punana Leo Maui. It's fascinating how the perspective of how they're taught. So as an example, before Lahaina was burned down, I was in the Rotary clubs in Lahaina, and we went to the Punana Leo school in Lahaina, and it was so interesting how how different you think of kindergartners today or preschoolers today, kind of like wild, unruly kids, right? Of a sorts. Not yet, but they're not disciplined. But the way they would, and I don't know if that's what they're doing now, but the way they did it at the time, the kid would come to the class through the entrance to the class, the gate, and they would go in Hawaiian. They say, "Teacher, it is I, Charles, ready to learn." And the teacher would reply in Hawaiian, come in and learn. Like, gosh, how beautiful is that? I mean, just the conversation of, don't forget about the Hawaiian but language, but just the conversation of how they treat the children was so unique. And the parents had to also study the Hawaiian language and be able to speak at home in the Hawaiian language to the children. Now they have high schoolers that have graduated with Olelo Hawaii and being able to speak Hawaiian language. Now they speak. I don't know if they speak because in every island had their own district and dialect of Hawaiian language. I don't know if they teach like that or if they do more like a college level where everybody speaks the same way. But and again, I didn't know this either. But it's things you learn over the time because we weren't taught any of that kind of stuff in school. I guess you could have learned some of that stuff because we had Mrs. Sarah Quick, I believe, as a Hawaiian studies teacher, but it wasn't an emphasis in school at the time. They have more of an emphasis on it now, but maybe
because when we were there, it was kind of a transition 4 years anyway. ROTC went through a transition. I believe they didn't even institute the Hawaiian language required classes till we were like juniors or something.
Yeah. I think that's true. I know that's true. because we never took any Hawaiian language classes or any Hawaiian studies or anything like that. Here's a fun one for you. Did you know that Auntie Nona Beamer was kicked out of Kamehameha schools
Oh,
when she was going to as a student? She danced hula. I think I don't know if it was a chair hula but she danced hula in school, and they kicked her out. They brought her back the next year, but the point is, here's another fun one. Um, Two of the original trustees of Bishop Estate were part of the Gang of 13 that overthrew the Kingdom of Hawaii. How's that one?
wow.
And you get all this stuff, and you're like, my goodness. And are they any different today? That's for a judgment. And I got plenty of receipts. What's the word now that they like to use in the news? I got receipts. But I don't want to get into the political realm because that it can drive somebody crazy in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Politics and religion, isolated topics.
But they're so very interesting though, because if you can just have a conversation, like I know I can have a conversation with Michael Crabb on politics, right? We may not agree, but I was so happy when I saw that it was going to be when Barack Obama won. I was so happy. You knew it was going to be. There was no question about it. You knew it was going to be either a black man or a white woman as president, and I was so happy about that. I didn't care about that. Um, the and again, good, bad, or otherwise, all these guys have something that has flaws along the way. But it's fun with Michael because I know I can get into a conversation with him, and you get past the rhetoric and you just have a conversation. But I'm more of an independent mind anyway, so but it's all fascinating to me. But for my purposes, I'd rather have there be just a Kingdom of Hawaii be returned. That would be interesting.
Yeah. Are you all set and prepared and planned to attend the reunion?
I am. I'm not sure if I'm going to the class night. I'm still kind of debating that for my own self. But yeah, I'm going to the class reunion. I was going to stay on the campus, but then my kid said, "Come stay with me." So I said, "Okay." I changed my mind. I'm going to stay with him. Besides, I'm going to do some business with him. So I'm still active in businesses, by the way.
So not flat out retired then.
You can't. If you're a W-2 employee, I imagine you can just kind of like, okay, I'm done. I want to do other things. But when you've had a business mindset for most of your life, it's hard to turn it off. You can see opportunities here, opportunities there, opportunities, but you're not going to take advantage of every opportunity. But it was pointed out to me by my kid brother, actually, my baby brother, that the federal government does an incredible amount of business with small businesses. And then so I started learning about that and going like, just because we're getting older doesn't mean that we're incapacitated. You have a brain that thinks better than most 18-year-olds. I mean, let's be honest, right? When we're 17, we might give a correct answer about something, but we can't validate why. At 68, we ask a difficult question, we can give an answer, and we can validate why we came up with that answer. And that's a huge part of critical thinking, which you have, unfortunately, on the left and the right, you have all these people that are popping off about one thing or another. But when you ask them to validate what their thought process is, well, because CNN said so, because Fox News said so. Oh, shut up. And so you have value. We all have value and capability because let's face it. When I was 8 years old, around the time Kennedy died, right? We were about that time, 7, 8 years old. We were about the time Kennedy died, and my grandmother was in her 60s, and her friends were already dead. Many of her friends were already starting to die. I'll be 70 in a couple of years. So will you. We still have serious capabilities. Our brains are not dying. They're very active, and you can strengthen it every day. I do Sudoku puzzles. I got this actually from Japan. There's like level 1 through 9, and the higher the level, the more difficult it gets. But it's good because it helps you exercise your brain. I'm in constant conversation about different things, so it helps me exercise my brain. Now, can I go lift? Can I be Kamu and become the back of a T-shirt? No, I ain't doing that. But I have capabilities that are not tapped right now. And so do you, and so does every one of our classmates. And instead of just like, okay, I'm done for my life. And again, I can only speak from a for the most part, a non W-2 employee perspective. I see so many opportunities around me. The federal government wants. Here's the thing: the federal government says that because we're brown people, we are disadvantaged. Now, that stupidity is stupid. Period. But that being said, the federal government does need help in doing the work that they need to do, and they have huge contracts available for all kinds of areas, um, in transportation, in medicine, in entertainment, you name it, computers. Um, I know somebody who has a cybersecurity contract that's getting over $100 million in his contract just to do cybersecurity for Space Force, right? Um, and they just issued that because first of all, he has the capability to be able to perform it, and the people that he brings with him. But importantly, they need to do it with a smaller business. So they make it very easy for small businesses that get themselves organized to do things like that. And because we are quote unquote disadvantaged, along with the American Indians and Alaskan Natives, we have special privileges that's not available to Boeing, for example.
Now, your current wife does she work, or is she retired, or
She's a homemaker.
okay? That's
The
working inside the house, that's for sure.
Yeah, Chef Chami. Tell you, man, Japanese food. I get spoiled by this girl. The wicked owner of Japanese food too. Disgusting, yummy food. It's hard to imagine unless you go there. But you know what? We was raised with Japanese food and Chinese food. You know, we always had the little Chinese restaurant we would go to, right? All the time. But I'll speak on the Japanese side because that is I'm very familiar with. Um, the Japanese food in Hawaii that we grew up with had way too much sugar and way too much shoyu and salt inside. Um, the in Japan food or cooked by Japanese, a heck of a lot less sugar and salt, and shoyu, a much lighter taste. And their rice, not very much rice either. They actually have the man-sized bowl for the rice and the women-sized bowl for the rice. Two different size. But they don't really eat a lot, and they cook their rice differently too. Crazy. Because we always grew up with you either did the one finger, the one knuckle or two knuckle rice, right, and then the water, and then the way they do it is very very different. Um, but anyway, it's a very different kind of rice cooking method that they do for Japan.
Uh, well,
And if you
it's
ever
going to be really exciting in June to be back in the same room with a lot of our classmates. It's been a lot of years, and I've
absolutely,
been talking to a lot of them who have never been to any gatherings or reunions at all since we graduated. So
yeah, it'll
a
definitely
lot
be a
of
lot of
them are
fun.
excited to come. Unfortunately, I've talked to a good number who really want to come, but life got in the way and they cannot come. So
You know what? My number one regret is COVID, and why? Because our 45-year reunion was canceled, right? Or they did some kind of online thing, which I thought was sucks. Um, but for a different reason, not because of the classmates. My father graduated in '50, and it never occurred to me in any of the reunions that I went to that go sit with this guy because he was my father was always away. He was a merchant marine, and because he was a merchant marine, I never really saw him a lot. He was kind of like Santa Claus of a sort. Um, and when I would see him, but he was a class of '50, and so I was going to go hang mostly with the class of '50 at the last year reunion, and like son of a gun. I don't know how many of them are still. As a matter of fact, I got to call those guys in Honolulu and ask them how many are still left in the class of '50 because I'm sure they'll be there. But he would be 80 something years old now, I think if I remember correctly. But that's what sucks about that is like I really wanted to go hang with that class because it's like because I didn't know my father that well, and I found out stories that were so fascinating about my father, who was a lure practitioner. I found out. You
Well,
know what lure is?
I mean, it's open to them because it's all the zeros and
Yeah,
fives.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so
so it'd be
I
an
look forward to seeing some of them
opportunity
too.
somewhere to pick up on whichever ones of them attend. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I know that. But
Well, my clock's ticking, but I tell you what, man, we'll definitely get together again in June and we get to see probably lots of faces that I hope I remember. I've asked the powers that be to make sure our name tags have really big font so I can read them.
yeah, I got my eyeballs cut so I can see better.
And I mean, it works, obviously.
Yeah, it was shocking. I got something called similar to what's called LASIK surgery, and I did it in Canada actually because America hadn't or had only approved it recently, but I did it in Canada because they had approved it years before. And so the surgeons that I did was like 2,000 surgeries already, and it's fascinating and interesting. And the stupidest or scariest part of that is after the fact, after the surgery, because you open up your eyes and maybe 20 feet away, they tell you to look at one of those big clocks in the corner of the room. And I had Coke bottle glasses in school, and so it didn't change very much. I look and I'm like, whoa, I can see the time. But then all of a sudden you go like, because they use laser, right, to burn your eyeballs. Oh man, that's flesh. That's my flesh that was burned. Oh, the smell. I see your eyes
Wow.
opening. Yeah, that was kind of spooky, but at the same time, I mean, literally, I can read fine print without glasses. I do wear glasses when I'm doing a lot of computer work, but when I'm not doing computer work, like I don't need it. I don't need to drive. I don't need to do anything.
That's exciting technology because I can see where sometime in the near future I'm probably going to have to invest in hearing aids because I lose a lot of sound in certain ranges now. So
Or do you?
we let the dog out and he'll come back in and scratch on the door when he's ready to come back in. And, I'm oblivious. And my wife goes, your dog needs to come in. And she'll be twice as far away from the door as I am. So
Wow.
I said, either my hearing's going to get bad or the dog's just going to leave and go live with other people. So,
I
but
imagine that's not
anyhow,
fun when it's cold outside for the dog.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Because you're in
Charles,
Minnesota,
man,
right?
mahalo for sitting with me, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time, man. I know that we've been on for a while here, so really appreciate your time and thank you for this opportunity and this privilege.
We'll see you in June.
All right, man. Sounds good. Aloha.
Aloha.